actually more than one videos. She took hours of video and cut them down to just a 20-minute video. There's tons of video. When you go watch Faye's on YouTube, Pistons and Pixie Dust, y'all know who Faye is way more than you know who I am. And I don't even know where I was going with this on the welding one. Oh, she's calling it the 100-hour intake manifold. You can ask Shop Mom, we probably got way more than 100 hours in this manifold. It wouldn't be cost effective. These are the kind of things that you would do at home, DIY. You know, you can spend a lot of quality time on your own parts, but a shop to make you something like this wouldn't be cost.
It would not be cost effective.
No,
I can promise you that.
Yes, so Shop Mom knows that it would not be cost effective. Doing good, Dark Blaze. I don't know that I lost me on my screen, but I'm back, so I don't know.
I see you.
I don't know if Terry's going to be here or not, so I'm not going to wait because we might not go the full hour, so we can get over to Blanco. All right.
Any questions about what you saw on Faye's video? I don't know that there are any questions, but I could certainly comment quite a bit on what I saw. Of course, I get to witness stuff here in person, but great chemistry, great collaborative effort. Love how Faye does her editing. The chickens, of course, are super cute. And we're glad that you guys joined us this afternoon to talk about it. Assuming we're talking about it.
Yeah, soon we'll talk about it. Like I said, I kind of, try to, have an idea of what we're going to talk about or whatever anybody suggests. Cheers, Matthew. And today it's about welding aluminum. It doesn't have to be about that. We talk about whatever we want to talk about. But Faye dropped a video earlier. We were trying to schedule a multi-drop video. She's at Outgrow's garage. She's been filming. We did a lot of filming beforehand, a lot of editing. She's in my video that I'm working on. I don't know if you heard from last Friday. If you were here last Friday. I was going to drop this video, and then they had comments about too much fast forward and too much music and whatever. And I just said the heck with it because I'm human too, and just said it wasn't that finger. I won't put a video at all. It's on the smoke unit, hot vapor engine, and where we're at now. So I just canned that video. All right. Don't like my editing skills. I'm not,
I told you stop taking that stuff so seriously. Don't be so thin-skinned.
And that because of...
Hey, Terry.
Hey, Terry, finally, finally, if you weren't here a second ago, but I did take a sip. I was just waiting for you. But now we got to stop. And hey, hey, TR, hey, Terry. Hi, RC.
Hi, RC. Hi, Mike. Mike was here this morning. We had a nice visit.
Yes, hi, Mike. We had a good visit today.
Mopar people are so interesting.
There's a difference. Mopar people are kind of like Volvo people. There's some differences. There's different kinds of people. Nothing bad. There's no underlying I'm a Chrysler guy from way back since high school.
Opportunity enthusiast.
Yes. It just means there's some people, and I don't want to say there's a Chevy person, a Ford person, or whatever. All they care that it runs, and then you have different levels of different people. Not true. You can have a real in-depth Chevy guy, or a Ford guy, or a Chrysler guy. But in general, I'm one of those weird, Mopar guys. So we're just a little bit different. But I'm also a Chevy guy. I'm also a Ford guy. So there it is. That being said,
we do have a question from Dark Blaze.
All right, Dark Blaze, your first question.
Would it be beneficial to change my intake manifold from the cheap plastic one to the aluminum version? Same engine, different vehicle. I have an '02 Cavalier, and I'm building it for drag racing.
And no one wants to hear this, but what's better for inlet air temperature? Plastic or aluminum? Plastic. I mean, everybody likes the cold air intake. It looks something like this, with the filter under your hood. And what is it doing? It's a heat sink. So heat is going to be attracted to cold. So it's not going to get stuck to a part that's hotter than it. It's going to go over to a part that's cooler than it. So anything cooler is going to attract all the heat to it. I don't want to say just like a hot woman and all the guys all going to come to that cool piece.
And
Well,
it doesn't have to be just women.
it doesn't have to be women. It could be a guy too. Exactly. So it could be this hot man and or cold man and all the hot women coming to him. That probably makes more sense. But you know what I mean. So while it may look nice, plastic is way better than aluminum. Now, in a hot situation, distortion and so on and so forth, an aluminum manifold is going to be a little more resilient to heat. But you're just drag racing it. So there's the kind of the options. Are you going to gain? What are you gaining by putting the aluminum manifold? Unless it's a better flowing manifold, something that's been enhanced for RPM or for torque or something. But just because, I don't know if you're going to gain anything, you might actually lose a little bit. But once the plastic one does warp and start, it doesn't take heat as well, you could have leaks. If that's the case, then don't go buy another plastic one. Just put an aluminum one on. But there's nothing wrong with the plastic one. In fact, it's probably better for not sucking in heat to your motor. All right. So we were talking about, or we have been talking about, or we're going to start talking about, we were talking about, I don't know what we're talking about. It was going to be welding. I have this piece of tubing that a customer brought in, and he bought mandrel bent pieces. So when you buy mandrel bent pieces, it's done on a machine so that you don't have a kink in it. And you can actually get them in use. You can get them in use, and you just buy a bunch of used, and you cut them to get the pieces you want. So he cut the pieces. There's a little wedge of a triangle there, a wedge of a triangle there. Here's the part of the U that he used, and then this part of the U, he cut the wedges off. Okay, it even has nice little humps at the end that are roll beaded in to help hold the hose on. I actually, don't mind the look of it. It actually has the nice shape. It's not ugly. But then he started, welding it himself, and I don't know if I don't know if you need it to be that close.
You can see.
You can see.
Definitely see.
So I have the task of fixing this because he paid a lot of money for the aluminum. So I thought this would be a great. I'm not picking on the customer now. He just got a TIG welder and he's learning how to TIG weld. And I actually helped him. You helped him answer some questions on where to set his TIG welder. So where to get started at? Where would be a baseline? And he was willing to try. Commend him. This is one of those instances that it may cost more than if he would have just brought me. Well, I know it's going to cost more. I mean, if he would have just brought the pieces to me, he could have saved himself the labor and did all the fab work himself. Cut all the pieces. I have had customers put hose clamps on. When you put all the pieces together, doing a set of headers, you at home did all the work, laid everything down, used hose clamps to hold everything together. They bring me the pieces. I tack weld them. They can take them back home, retrowel and fit them. Something needs to be moved a little bit. Take a little grinder, cut the tack weld, remove it a little bit, put a hose clamp back on it. So that's just a tip. Hose clamps work really good. A lot of times I'll take a hose clamp and I'll drill a hole in the hose clamp, a couple spots. And the reason is, if I put a hose clamp on top of the seam, I really can't weld because the hose clamp is on top of the seam. But if I drill a couple of holes in the hose clamp, I can put a hose clamp there, tighten it where I want it, take it off, and I can put a tack weld right in the hole that I drilled in the hose clamp. And all we need is a couple of tacks. And if we're doing fab back and forth from a customer, their house, and back here, I like to tack, let them take it home and try it. We can always cut one tack loose, we can spin it, we can do some changes. He bought a TIG welder. And he got some stuff. So on this particular instance, it may have been better for him to just tack it himself and brought it to me with just the tacks. And then I could have finished the welding up because he got the seams, nice and tight. But then, boy, it just went to town. I mean, look at the inside of that one. That's the inside. And that's the outside. So it's going to take so much now to remove this that this is one instance, like I said, it would have been better off maybe if you bought the TIG welder and you're just starting, do the tacks and then take it to somebody, let them weld it, or buy more aluminum or something. So All right, I'm sure there's something else. I don't think anybody wants to talk about welding today anyway, which is okay with me. Um, Anything, Shop Mom?
No, nobody's really. I mean, Tom's here. He said hi or ciao. Actually, Tom said ciao.
Ciao, Tom?
And of course, it's always good to see family.
Mm-hmm.
But no, there are no questions at the realshopmom@gmail.com.
So we're doing good, I guess.
Everybody must have great plans for the weekend. Kyle says hi too. Hi, Kyle.
Hey, Kyle. Shop Mom explained to me the situation. And Tom, I am coming up to work tomorrow. I'm doing dyno work.
He's busy tomorrow.
I know he's busy tomorrow. I just thought I would throw that in there because I know that tomorrow he's busy. But just wanted to let you know I don't want to say I appreciate your situation. You're a better man than me, Tom. All right. So
My mother would like to know what made the welds blow through.
on one of them, I could tell because they were really white and oxidized. So the very first thing I did, I said, "What's your shielding gas? I mean, it looks like your argon was off." And he said, "I forgot to turn the argon on." So I understand that one. And sometimes, I make glass bead that, try to bend it up a little closer. So that was one of the shielding gas. First, he had a bunch of problems. Not on, then maybe not the right flow. I like about 25 on my flow meter. There's actually a pre and post flow of argon. He's also, which I think may be some of it, he's using a mix. When you use a mix of argon and CO2 gas mix, I use pure argon. I use pure argon because most of my stuff that I weld is just aluminum. So I use pure argon. Can you use pure argon to weld stainless? I just welded, and I don't think Rose is in the room, but I had to call out the big guns and ask some questions to Rose on how to weld chromoly. I know what I know, and I know what I don't know. So she helped me out a lot, and that worked out great. So you have different gases that you use in your bottle as your shielding gas. I believe he's using an argon CO2 mix. I don't want to say I believe, that's what he told me, but I'm bad with memory. But it wasn't that long ago. We just brought this, and he asked, and this is another thing, real important. And this is not just for welding, and I've mentioned this before on the live streams. Sometimes asking somebody else how they did something or how they're doing something. I could ask 3 different guys on what end gap they're running on their rings, but that's not it is the important thing. But there's so much consideration to the end gap on the rings by the cylinder temperature. So one guy may be running aluminum heads, one might be running E85, one may be running nitros, one guy. So all of those variables change the end gap. So, but I read an article, and this guy was running 8 seconds to a quarter mile, and I want to copy his. Unless you're copying every single thing, don't pick out. I mentioned this last time. It's like, a recipe, trying to bake a cake, and I don't like baking powder, or I don't like this, and I removed that, but I put something else that it was white. It was, flour. I don't know what it was. And my cake didn't rise the same way. Well, I changed the recipe. So in this particular instance, he asked, this is what I'm kind of surmising, and we talked about it a little bit. He asked me what settings I'm using on my TIG welder. I have an older Miller. It has a transformer, okay? He has a newer inverter. Now the TIG welders are different on the inside. Back in the day, they all had a transformer. Boom, that was it. Heavy metal, man. Boom. Now we have digital. We have not to say that we don't have a transformer in there anymore. Still high frequency, but there's differences. So if he used argon and CO2 mix, it generally runs hotter. So it generally has a hotter spot. So you're gonna have the different fuels, different gases are going to be different settings. So asking someone, hey, what setting do you put your pedal to? What setting do you put yours? And then you have a different welder. He doesn't have an inverter type. So, he has an inverter type. He doesn't have a transformer type. Now, the new welders are no longer transformer. That's why you see some of these dynasty welders, they're about this big. They call them soup case welders. They have a strap. They go over your shoulder. You can climb a ladder, and yet it's 150 amps. You know, I've seen them a little bit bigger than that, 200 amps, because they have an inverter inside. They don't use a transformer. A transformer is huge. You got a big welder, it's got a big transformer inside of it. So there's different kinds of welders. Even the tip that you grind your tungsten is different for whichever, you know. So anyway, probably getting too much into welding.
There's a couple of questions about that though.
All right.
Dr. 62220 wants to know what brand of TIG welder would be recommended to learn on. And then Tom asked a really interesting question, which is, can 3D metal printing provide the same level of precision at a cost-effective rate?
Most definitely. In fact, there's somebody out there now, just seeing it just recently, that's actually now, I've seen it, they've been working on this for a while. They actually now have for sale LS manifolds that are 3D printed. They're completely 3D printed manifolds. I mean, I think that's just the most awesome way to go. You can change something at a fly. Now, 3D printing isn't quick. If anybody out there does 3D printing, you know, a little piece will take you 4 hours of 3D printing. But yes, a 3D printing. Now they're doing 3D printing in metal. They're doing 3D printing in metal. They're doing 3D printing. They're building houses with 3D printers with concrete. Back in the day, it wasn't even that long ago when I started doing my 3D printing. When it first came out, started doing 3D printing, I thought, I'm going to take my TIG welder and I'm going to take the extruder head from a 3D printer, take it off, put a TIG welder, and then just, you know, run wire through a spool, and I'm going to 3D weld, 3D print. What is a 3D printer? It uses a spool of filament, and it lays them all down, and it keeps laying layers and layers and makes whatever you want. So I thought, it wouldn't be very difficult at all to take a TIG welder, add argon gas, and put a spool on it, and do that. I should have patented it like this a long time ago, because now they're doing just that. So yes, so the 3D printing is just an amazing way to go. The future has come a long way. Now there's actually, like I said, a company making manifolds and selling them. So they started prototyping, trying it. We can 3D print in PLA plastic, or we can print in different plastics. So we can have the same kind of heat that all the intake manifolds that Chevy, Ford, and Chrysler does. We can 3D print with that as well. Okay. Happy Friday, Too White and Nerdy. It's Austin for us, but
it's Austin.
If I said Happy Friday, Austin, y'all would be going,
Who's Austin?
Who's Austin? Or you think I'm talking about Austin, Texas, but it's that way, by the way. Anyway.
Okay, so
yes.
Did you answer, in fact, the question about what's a good TIG welder to start on?
What's a good TIG welder to start on? The Eastwood, I believe it's Eastwood. It's not Eastman. I think it's Eastwood, right? Eastwood. Eastwood has an inverter type that I've had several customers and customers now friends all talk super highly of it. It's expensive, but it's actually a real good welder. It's a real good welder. I kind of, it depends on what you're welding. I know you want to just get started on there. eBay, get you a nice miller. Not that Lincoln isn't. All good brands. I grew up with Miller's Sinker Wave back in the day, and every welder that I've bought since then has always been a Miller. I use it in an industrial sense. I mean, I crank down on it 250 amps. I crank down on it. I weld heavy aluminum, and I use it. And never have, now here we're gonna go, right? I've never had a failure with that. One of my early ones I sold to my mom, to her shop, and it's still going and going. So if you can find a nice Miller welder, sometimes you can find them, and this is what you're gonna have to sacrifice a little bit. Charlie, a friend of mine, bought one. An older Miller, got a real good deal on it. It even has a water cooler on it. It's bigger than this sign right here. It's about that tall, and it's about this big. It's a transformer type. Has a water cooler. I like a water cooled torch, not air cooled. I don't think I personally wouldn't ever have an air cooled torch, because I weld aluminum cylinder heads. So I'm cranking down a lot. And when you're in the middle of a weld, you don't want to stop. And the nicer welds, all welders are going to have a duty cycle. How much time on, how much time off. I can crank this dude on, and I get it. It'll wear me out. It's water cooled, and then it has a fan on. As it starts getting up there, the fan comes on. Little tip: don't aim your welder to your table. You know, make sure you know where the fan comes on. Put a little shield, because you'll be welding, the fan will come on and blow all your argon right. Anyway, that's the tip there. But if you have the space in your garage, in your shop, you can buy the older transformer types, because they're going to be big and people want to get rid of them. I mean, if you want to start off with something expensive that's going to last you forever, it's, you know, the one that Charlie bought, I think, was, you know, 80 years old. It's one of the oldest I've ever seen, but it still works really well. If you want to buy something and you don't have much shop space, I mean, they have them about this big. They literally have little TIG welders that aren't any bigger than that. The Lincoln welders that Faye has, we may need to just do a video on his brand new little TIG welder. Nice little, I say little, you probably do anything anybody could ever want, and it's a Lincoln. So I'm going to have some in-house classes, and we're going to get Faye up to speed to at least do some general tacking and a general easy welding. I don't expect anybody just starting with the welding to go weld an aluminum manifold. I mean, unless you're just welding a decorative tab on it, anything with oil in it wouldn't be something that you want to start right off, you know, doing. But something like that would do just about anything around your shop. You want to do a roll cage? It'll do a roll cage. It'll do tubing. If you start doing anything thicker than a 1/4 inch, it'll still do it if you preheat the stuff first. So
Hugh Robinson has the observation that the old ones were made to last. If not, they were made to fix and keep using them. Nowadays, everything is throwaway.
exactly. And Ed, hi Ed, happy Friday. What TIG welder do you have? It's exactly right. Like you're saying, the older ones were made to last. The one that Charlie bought's old and it's big. I mean, it takes up a lot of space, but the cost was really right. And you couldn't touch any kind of, you know, it was almost like take it, you know. And it's a nice TIG welder. He's learning how to use it, but like I said, depends on what your budget is. But the small
It doesn't have one. It was Hugh who asked the question.
all right, I need
I
one.
have to keep Danny straight.
There you go. Well, Ed, once you, I remember once you get one, you'll kind of like, why did it take me so long? Or there's so many things you could do with it that you didn't know. To convey as a kid, my mom, I was actually real fortunate that she always embraced technology. Sometimes, you know, a little bit slower, but still always embraced it. And a TIG welder was one of those things that we've gone 20 years, 30, whatever long, you know, grew up in his business, and we never had one. Do we really need one? We had a crank welder, and that's a submerged arc welder. But it was kind of like, so I had to actually venture out on my own and get a TIG welder. Here's an example that a TIG welder is going to help you right off the bat. How do you remove exhaust seats? Ed, how do you remove exhaust seats from a cylinder head that it already has exhaust seats in it? I'm going to tell you the old way that we used to do it. We took a chisel, and they even make a bar that has like a crow's foot that you put in the seat, and then you hit it with a hammer, and it bends it out sideways. I never really quite liked it. Sometimes we go in through the port, go all the way through the port with the long chisel, get underneath the seat, and hit it, knock it out. All those examples that I just showed are going to leave a chisel mark underneath where you went underneath the seat and the cast iron head, which doesn't really affect anything. I have a tool that they make that actually is round, and it has 3 fingers, but they're like spikes. You stick it into the seat, and you turn the 2 wrenches, the spikes go out, and then you slide hammer this dude out. But you're still putting these spikes, you know, right underneath where the seat goes. You have a TIG welder. All you do is you run a bead on the inside of the seat. So you have aluminum heads, cast iron heads, whatever head you have, and you say, I need to remove these seats. Lay it on the table, put a clamp on it for ground, and run the TIG weld. I'll use the cheapest rod, because you're not doing any kind of welding the cheapest rod you can get, and right on the inside of the valve seat, put a bead. Go around and put a bead on the inside of the seat, and then the last little bit, I have the welding rod. I stop and I leave the welding rod there. As it starts to cool down, I pull on the welding rod, and it's snug, and it starts cooling down a little bit, and the seat come out. I'll have to do a video maybe on how to remove seats, and I generally on my back table have a bunch of seats with little pieces of the welding rod, on it, depending on if I get down low. If not, I just break it off and go to the next seat. You're never going to remove seats that fast and without damaging nothing.
You taught Eli how to do that, he says. Eli Garza's here.
I remember doing it. Yes, so Eli is my cousin. This is Chief's son. So if you see Eli Garza, Chief is Eliseo Garza. So this is from the same blood that we all came from, the Garza blood, and it could be Solis blood too. I'm Solis, but anyway, we won't.
We all know how you feel about jail.
Yes, we all know how I feel about jail, but years ago, Eli's a lot younger than me. So Eli and Abraham's his brother. We'll say stories like love stories, but I don't really have the same. Even Elaine, they don't have the same experiences that I had with Chief because they were a lot younger, and I'm a lot older, so I was younger with Chief. So I got to grow up with Chief in the shop. But when I was doing this, they weren't even born yet. So Abraham, I remember they brought Abraham home and to our house. Anyway, Eli, I remember years ago, Eli starting to weld, and then Eli is a certified bad to the bone welder now. So in real world, he went to school.
Dark Blaze has a question for
Dark
you.
Blaze has a question for me.
Have you heard of the new startup welding company, Yes Welder? They have a 7-in-1 welder and plasma cutter. They are budget friendly.
I haven't heard of that one, but other friends, customers have talked about this all-in-one welders and kind of been happy. But a couple of people had a problem with I don't know if it was the plasma part or what, but here's the thing. All-in-one does everything, but it does everything, or specifically does everything better. So I have heard of issues after a while. I remember for the transfer, the circuit board going out, the plasma part going out, or so then you lose all in one. You lose all your things at one time. But if you only have to buy one and you're not going to use it very much, that will be the best thing. If you're just playing in the garage and you're not going to use it as a, man, you know what, I'm picking up welding and I'm going to start doing exhaust, or I'm going to start. Generally what happens is people get bit by the bug and they enjoy it. And then Eloy can testify that you start welding. He's a pipeline welder and stainless. Yes, he does certified welding. And then Eloy can testify that. Then you start building barbecue pits, and then custom barbecue pits, and then so a lot of people get in, and then they start enjoying it. And then a neighbor says, "Hey, make me a welder like yours." So I know a lot of people, make me a trailer like yours, because they built their own trailer. When you first start welding, what do I want to make? So what's the first kind of things that you make? First of all, you make a little table, but then, it ain't going to be very long before I'm going to make a trailer. Eli was making trailers, bad to the bone trailers. And then going to work at a company that made real trailers. So it kind of gets you, it's not a bad field to get into, and you can pick and choose what you want to do. But unless you just want to get to play, or I may have some thin aluminum or some little tabs I want to make for my car, any of the inexpensive welders will do it. And maybe don't start off with something expensive. But see, I would rather buy a nicer used unit than a brand new all-in-one myself. But me, I know eBay. My TIG welder that I have here was actually a used TIG welder. You can buy junk or you can buy real nice stuff. This was a one-man shop. He did fabricating dune buggies and cages for vehicles, for vans, you know, roll cages for four-wheel drive Ford trucks. He was a specialty guy. He worked for the railroad, and in his garage he started welding. Then he became to a storage building, and then it became to, that's what he was doing, building these dune buggies. Started building these dune buggies. Then he got transferred from San Antonio to another state, and he thought, you know what? I'm gonna just put it on Craigslist and see what happens. If not, I'm taking it with me. I went over and looked at it. He said, look, it's, you know, I'll make you a deal on it, but it's really not that much of a deal because when I get to where I'm going, I'm gonna need to buy another one. But I'll tell you what, it was already all loaded up and it was gonna be a trip coming back to his storage unit. So we made a deal and I got this welder. I got it at a good price. It was, man, he made an aluminum plate for the top of it. So when he put his stuff down, he wouldn't scratch it. That's my kind of guy. It was a water-cooled torch. Every option you could get on this thing. It looked brand spanking new. And he said, I'm making this deal on this. Guess what? You can take the argon bottle. You can take, and he pointed over at his chassis jig. He had this beautiful chassis jig he made with the bars that laid across, rolls around. And he said, this is where I build my dune buggies on. I was going to cut it up and put it on the trailer or get another trailer. He goes, so I'll tell you what, I'm only going to come down a little bit on the welder because I know what I have, but you can have the chassis jig. So in other words, I took a trailer and yes, I bought that, but I got this chassis jig, which is now in my shop. Anyway, that's the thing. I would rather buy something new. When I sold welder, my mom's shop has one. It was still in a cardboard box. The next one after that I sold, I got almost as much as I had in it, but it was still in a box as well. In fact, it was one of Abraham's friends who bought that one. So I like to put my stuff back in the box. Here, I have a cover for it. So anyway, if you're going to buy used, buy somebody that you could tell this guy really cared about his equipment. There's a lot of junk out there. If you go buy a welder that was used in a commercial environment, you could tell because it'll be black. It'll be black and who knows how many hours they've been welding on. So you can choose and pick. And
Dark Blaze says he bought a good starter welder from Harbor Freight that is an off-brand made by Miller.
I've heard about the Harbor Freight one.
Yes.
Yes. We've heard a lot of good stuff about the Harbor Freight one. It's little, it's inexpensive, and it gets you going. And I've actually heard, I don't think I've ever heard anything bad. We know some people that have bought them. I didn't know they were made by Miller. That makes kind of sense. But the Harbor Freight little TIG welder is awesome. I mean, as far as I've heard, I've had people just really have no problems with them at all.
And of course, Wade says you can buy good stuff once or possibly cheap stuff multiple times. Or as we like to say, lo barato sale caro.
Yes. Sometimes you can find something that the guy went all in. Bought the gloves, bought the helmet, bought everything. Did it once or twice for a project. It sat in his garage and now he's moving or something and just wants to get rid of it. Like I said, the one that I got, the guy was moving. They're out there. You just got to know what you're looking for.
Okay, Mike is having to sign off, and I think that's probably my cue as well. As you explained to folks earlier in the evening, we have an engagement to attend in Blanco as we celebrate Nelson Broyles' life. And one of the things that I would say is if you haven't gone to YouTube's Blanco Pickers and watched Nelson's video, I think you should. It's a good way to remind yourself of what matters.
I'm going over there right now. No, so we're gonna go ahead and I guess this would be a good stop, like Sharmam's saying, to go ahead and end it a little soon because we're going to Blanco. Anybody in the Blanco area, stop on by. Free whiskey, free beer, free love. That's not why you go, but it's free, good times, a lot of good people. They're gonna be playing Nelson's music. So you'd be surprised who's gonna be playing this music. But anyway, I think that's the point where we say piece and assembly grease. Everybody, sorry we're cutting it a little on the short side, but
Go
Nelson.
watch Faye's video.
And go watch Faye's video. If you haven't watched Faye's video now and you still have 30 minutes more that you've allotted for this time, go watch the last, it's a 20-minute video. So it'll end.
And it's exactly 20 minutes.
And it's exactly 20 minutes. So there's your last part of the hour. Leave here, happy, piece and assembly grease, and go over to Faye's video. All right, piece and assembly grease. We'll see you next Friday.